Well, of course, the Democratic Alliance was on the march today over the load shedding issue. They say South Africa doesn't actually have an electricity problem, it has an ANC problem. DA supporters marched to Luthuli House in Johannesburg. They also were on the march in Cape Town. They protested outside the provincial offices in the mother city today over rolling blackouts. And the DA claims the governing party has failed to uphold its promise to resolve the country's energy crisis. The ANC says the DA's march was in the wrong direction and they should have rerouted to Megawatt Park. eNCA's Pule Letshwiti-Jones was outside Luthuli House here in Johannesburg and he joins me in studio. So, Pule, the DA I think was hoping for some 4,000 people to join them on their march in Johannesburg. Talk to me about the support that the opposition party received today.
Yeah, really, they really mobilized a lot of people, and one could actually say those close, like about 2,000 people actually arrived. Not quite sure about 4,000, but I could say about 2,000 members of the DA, or supporters of the DA, who made their way today to Johannesburg CBD, supporting, of course, their cause, which was to take the fight to the ANC's Luthuli House and ensure that they can try to get answers. And we spotted just about over 10 buses that came through today. And, you know, when the march actually started, you'd think that it was really quite a small group, but it actually gained momentum throughout the day, and there's quite a lot of people who arrived.
Yeah, and of course, you know, let's not forget that this issue of load shedding affects absolutely everybody. So
Right.
there is a lot of unhappiness. So it is understandable. The ANC, in that intro, basically saying it's not our problem, actually Eskom should have sorted this out. But we do know as well that there have been political decisions around this ongoing problem of maintenance, with even former presidents such as Thabo Mbeki admitting that they got it wrong when they didn't listen to Eskom. But the ANC today had a very specific message for the DA. Tell us about that.
Definitely, calling them childish and saying it's unfortunate that they're marching to the ANC's headquarters, being Luthuli House. In fact, Sally, you know, from Monday, it seems as though it's been the DA and ANC at each other's necks. Remember, Monday, Tuesday was the whole cadre deployment case where the DA is trying to declare the cadre deployment policy unconstitutional in the court of law. And today we saw them actually in the streets this time around. But, you know, what the ANC did was to mobilize and get numbers of the ANC youth leaguers who were then outside protecting the officers of the ANC. And they were quite clear to say that if the DA does come here, we will defend our headquarters. And you could see some of them, you know, carrying things like, you know, whips, tasers amongst the weapons. So things could have gotten ugly if the DA and the ANC did come together. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but were there any clashes, actually, physical clashes?
Well, at some point we did see the ANC Youth League actually chasing some members of the DA, but really there wasn't some sort of a dangerous scuffles. There were, of course, you know, altercations between the members of the ANC Youth League and the police officials, because at some point they tried to get onto the other side of the fence where the DA supporters had been standing listening to their leaders as well. So, you know, the safety measures were really tight and put in place to ensure nothing chaotic and there isn't anything that spirals out of control. But let's just take a listen to what Pule Letshwiti had to say regarding not wanting the DA to come to Luthuli House earlier today.
The ANC is not going to be receiving any memorandum from the DA. Luthuli House is not a playground for other political parties that are trying to garner mileage. So they mustn't do this. The country is facing electricity challenges. The ANC today is convening an energy dialogue that the Secretary General of the ANC will be addressing with all other industry experts. We dispatched our ANC Youth League to come and welcome the DA because we felt that they are that size. So the ANC we can't. Officials of the ANC are quite busy doing a number of, performing a number of other responsibilities. And we must thank the ANC Youth League. They've been here since early morning, waiting for the guests, but Luthuli House is not going to be receiving any memorandum. So they are wasting their time.
Okay, so he's saying they're not going to take any memorandum. Was there actually a memorandum from the DA at all?
Good question. To begin with, there was no memorandum. As far as we understand, the DA's leader, John Steenhuisen, Member of Parliament, quite clear to say we're going to deliver a message to the ANC's headquarters, trying to ensure that now they understand. And he says that they wanted to make it clear that the ANC is the reason to the country's worsening energy crisis, saying that they were representing the people and ensuring that they can take the problem to the ANC's headquarters, because they allege that that's where some of the utilities contracts are being signed. They allege that the cater deployment policy is the reason behind this, where, you know, officials have been deployed to strategic positions within the utility. But furthermore, saying that the ANC is the ruling party and therefore they should take accountability. And that's why they decided to go to the ANC's headquarters, even though we do now know that there were really tight safety measures put in place to ensure that there isn't any scuffle that happens between members of the DA and, of course, members of the ANC. Let's just take a listen.
Today's march is about starting to take power back and giving it back to the people of South Africa where it belongs. Power not to the government, power to the people. Power not to the government, power to the people. Power not to the government, power to the people. Because that's where it belongs, in a democracy, in the hands of you, the people. And that's why we're here today in these library gardens at Luthuli House. Now let me tell you, we've had to deal the last 2 weeks since we announced the march with the pearl clutchers and those in the media who are squeamish when the DA stands up and takes a stand on behalf of South Africans. And the airwaves have been full of it. Why are you going to Luthuli House? Why don't you march to Eskom, to Megawatt Park? Why don't you march to NERSA? And my answer is simple. When you have a problem, you go to the root cause of the problem and you address it at the root cause of the problem.
We know, of course, the DA was also on the march in Cape Town, making a point, putting the blame squarely at the door of the ANC. What happens next?
It's a very good question. What now? Because many have been saying, was this really for political, scoring points, for political reasons, or to gain mileage? We really don't know. But as far as we understand right now is that the fight does continue. We've seen it on social media where many South Africans are seething, demanding answers, saying they themselves will actually embark on a national shutdown and go to the presidency's union buildings. This is a national energy crisis that's affecting everyone, like you're saying, Sally. And many were hoping that it could have been used for the correct discourse where everyone was included, not for political differences. So we wait to see what happens next. The DA is confident that if they can win their matter, the deployment policy being declared unconstitutional, it will be a step in the right direction for them to ensure that the correct officials are actually given the correct appointments in some of these strategic positions in government, in the SOEs. So for now, we wait.